We're reviewing a Starboosa 23mm eyepiece. This eyepiece has a 62-degree field of view. It is a 1.25-inch eyepiece. It comes in a friction fit little plastic protector here, so it doesn't have any caps on the eyepiece itself. It just comes with this case. It has an eye relief thing here that can be folded down. Marked 23mm, 62-degree field of view. Aspheric eyepiece. So we're not talking ED glass. This has a retail price of $20 and it rattles. So I guess that's one way to keep your optics from being pinched, is not put them in hard at all. But this is the first eyepiece I've used that rattles that much when you shake it. Nothing's coming out, but it is rattling. So the eye cup folds off. This little brass ring pops off there. This thing here will screw out, and the lens hair is being held in. It looks like kind of a spanner wrench. There's two little notches there. I'm going to see if I can tighten that up a little bit to get rid of that shake. So yeah, there's a retaining ring in here, and with just a flathead small screwdriver I'm able to rotate that so it's not at all tight from the factory. And there I've rotated it in place, and that got rid of that shaking. So no pinched optics with this guy. So the bottom of the eyepiece is threaded to accept filters. I have my filter collection here. This filter's a little bit on the larger side of things, and it threads in nicely. And then, tighten that back down. This filter here is a little bit on the smaller side of things, and it's threading in too. So I'm going to say those filter retention threads are well within tolerances for this eyepiece. To test this eyepiece, I'm using my Meade ETX-90 telescope. It has a 1250mm focal length, and it comes with a 26mm eyepiece that has a 52-degree field of view. So that eyepiece gives a 48x magnification in this telescope. So this Starboosa here will give a 54x magnification, which is pretty similar, and it's a 63-degree field of view. So it's a similar field of view, but 10 degrees wider. So I use my cell phone and a cell phone eyepiece holder to take a picture through each eyepiece, and I've put them up here side by side. In person, the Starboosa, the 10-degree extra field of view feels a lot bigger in person. In these two pictures it looks about the same, but when you're putting your eye to the eyepiece, that extra 10 degrees, it really feels like you have a bigger view of what you're looking at. The magnification here, 48 versus 54 is very similar, so I'm not expecting much differences here. Obviously, middle of the day, seeing across a lake with all the heat rising up isn't great, but from my viewpoint, it looks like these two eyepieces, the Starboosa looks to be pretty much a perfect match for the stock eyepiece on this telescope. So obviously I'm going to take these out at night and kind of check back and forth between the two of them at night, but at least during the day here, they look very similar. Okay, I went and used this on my Meade ETX-90 last night. I looked at the moon, I looked at a star, and I looked at the planet Saturn. And I was comparing it to the stock eyepiece that comes with the ETX-90, which is a 26mm, and this is a 23mm. So, zoom-wise, they're pretty similar there. The moon looked fine, perfectly acceptable. You could see Saturn with it, you could see the star, and in all three cases, there was a very faint difference between the stock eyepiece and this eyepiece. But I found the stock eyepiece just a little more comfortable to use and to pull focus. Saturn and the gap between Saturn and its rings look just a little bit sharper with the stock eyepiece than this eyepiece here. So this is a $20 eyepiece, and I think it's perfectly acceptable at that price point. So if you need a 23mm eyepiece, if you have a big gap in your eyepiece collection, you don't have a lot of money to spend, you can buy this and it'll work pretty well in that range. It's, everything was visible. I just felt that there was a slight step up to the stock eyepiece that came with my telescope, and that is a different eyepiece. So this is not an eyepiece that you're going to be upgrading to. This is a starter eyepiece. It gets the job done. It's acceptable image quality. but obviously the more you pay for an eyepiece, the better the quality is going to get. So I don't have any reservations against buying this for $20. It's a reasonable purchase at that price point. It's reasonable performance at that price point. But do keep in mind, you're paying $20 for an eyepiece. And so, if you pay more, you're going to get better optical quality in a lot of cases.